Hello, everybody. We made it to the end of 2025. 2025 has been intense and fast moving, fast and furious, to say the least. I know that a lot of us couldn't have imagined a lot of the developments that have happened throughout this year when we were standing here just a year ago anticipating what 2025 was going to bring us. So, again, as we do at every new year, we're standing at another precipice of 2026. Sarah and I will be bringing you an overview of what 2026 will look like on Broadcast Astrology Insight for Humans. But let's reel ourselves back and take a look at what December 2025 has in store for us. So, November's Mercury retrograde likely sent many of us on some crazy rides. As we were traveling along the road of life, we were pulled off at an unexpected and maybe even a disruptive exit. At the time, it may not have made any sense, but as the Mercury retrograde fog is slowly lifting at the end of November and into the middle of December, we still have a little bit of these bumps to work through. We could start to see the reason behind some of the madness. Of all of the planetary archetypes, Mercury thrives when we look at peculiar events, such as what may have occurred in November, and view them through the lens of curiosity and wonder. It is through curiosity that we learn and expand our experience as human beings, which is the core of Mercury's archetypal purpose. So it's possible that the shakeups that November provided via the Mercury retrograde delivered a valuable reorientation for the near future. So, although the Mercury retrograde has ended by the beginning of the month, there will continue to be fallout from what occurred during the retrograde, as I just stated. You can expect this most prominently around December 10th, when Mercury revisits the opposition to Uranus. Look out for a reshake-up of some of the things that came up, or maybe even of clarity, like, oh, that's what that was for. The next couple of months will be very big, especially the first couple months of 2026. What occurs in the upcoming months is the crescendo in many ways of what we've been moving towards in the past year. The past couple of months have been a reprieve from much of the earlier intensity of 2025. November and then December is largely acting as integration points as we stand between these larger changing mechanisms. In December, we really need to breathe, gather ourselves, and enjoy. But we will be back into the fire hose soon enough. Thankfully, December doesn't thrust us into this culmination point that I'm speaking to, which will be taking place in early 2026, most prominently. Rather, it inspires inquiry into how we arrived at where we're at, both personally and universally. And we are encouraged to take stock of our mistakes as well as our successes and release that which doesn't serve us any longer. At the end of the cycle that we have been speaking to throughout 2025 is really at its final point. It's at the end of a very long chapter, which includes a 30-year chapter, which is Saturn returning to Pisces, a 14-year-long chapter, which is Neptune into Pisces, and a 2-year chapter, which is Saturn into Pisces. And there's a couple other chapters here as well, which I'm not focusing on because I'm really focusing on this Pisces Aries point right now. But this tidal wave of change that we've been feeling, there's no turning back, essentially. So the Pisces Aries cusp that we stand upon represents the ultimate ending, which is Pisces, dissolving into bold new life, which is Aries. It is a zodiacal representation of the life death cycle. And the planets, Saturn and Neptune, also represent endings, dissolving and the great letting go. If you're like me, you could be experiencing the sudden loss of life around you. Souls deciding to take their leave. It is a cosmic opening for those who wish to take advantage of it. But more pragmatically, it is an opportunity for us to live our lives with less baggage, live our lives with more vigor and a new vision. 2025 was the year of the snake, similarly encouraging us to shed our proverbial skin so that we can grow into something much more magnificent. And 2026 is the year of the horse, embodying the Aries action orientation. December is urging the unshed parts of ourselves to release so that we are light and agile as 2026 begins to take shape. Our first stop in this December journey is the Gemini full moon. The Gemini full moon perfects at 5:14 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on December 4th, 2025. And the full moon is situated at 13 degrees Gemini, 3 degrees, with the sun in Sagittarius and the moon in Gemini. The full moon in Gemini is curious and active. Trying out new ideas and sharing information at a fast pace is definitely Gemini style. This is when we will be ramping up our social schedules to attend holiday parties and gathering gifts for our loved ones. There's a lot of exciting movement and conversation around this time. Venus is very involved in the full moon being conjunct to the sun, making these events more enjoyable and harmonious. Mercury, who rules the full moon, is in Scorpio, applying to trines with Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. This watery grand trine has recently been triggered by Mercury as part of its November retrograde journey, as well as the Sun, Venus, and Mars, all from the sign of Scorpio, which is largely what brought in a lot of the flow and the enjoyment that we were able to indulge in during the month of November. So, as I said, it's likely ushered in times of emotional support, deep understanding, and the like for Thanksgiving break. This is a beautiful signature to have within the Gemini full moon chart, filling our chatty and curious connections with depth and meaning. So, one last piece is that the full moon is a nearly exact square to the nodes. So, this suggests a time of fated circumstances, synchronicity, and possibly unexpected shifts in your plan. But with so much support, flow, and inspiration, expect this time to be positive overall. So, we're going to do a little deep dive into Neptune. Neptune is going to station direct on December 10th, and it's the last time that it's going to do so in the sign of Pisces for a very long time. Neptune first entered the sign of Pisces in April 2011 and decisively entered Pisces in February 2012. So we have been under the spell of Neptune in Pisces for 14 years. Neptune is a planet of creativity, of compassion, as well as deception. Neptune represents the forces that dissolve boundaries, expand perception, and connect us to realms beyond the rational mind. It is subtle, nonlinear, mysterious, and deeply symbolic. Neptune is like the ocean. It is beautiful, dangerous, transcendent, and it is also uncontrollable. In Pisces, Neptune is at home from a modern astrology perspective and has been able to express its nature fully. Its time here has brought us a presidential candidate who ran on a slogan of hope. Yoga and meditation became incredibly popular, as did healthier eating and understanding the body holistically. There was a rise of collective compassion and a tidal wave of ancient and new healing methods. Film and entertainment in general changed, immersing the viewer more intimately into the screen. We see this through breakthroughs in technology, as well as the dawn of binge watching, which Neptune can also represent escape. Less positively, there has been a rise in misinformation, as well as a takeover of the algorithm and the truth being massively blurred. While the rise in plant medicine has had many positive effects, it has also ushered in many false prophets, as well as a new wave of recreational drugs. Spiritual bypassing has become a buzzword. AI, falls into this category because it has made reality difficult to determine. Many of us are being duped by the content that AI creates, such as bunnies jumping on trampolines. Now we stand at the edge of a new era. Neptune into Aries. Neptune was previously in Aries from 1861 to 1874. Neptune is a very slow planet, as I mentioned before. Its cycle is 168 years. Aries doesn't necessarily share Neptunian characteristics. Aries is the sign of selfhood, action, courage, and initiative. It can feel jolting for any planet to cross the Pisces Aries threshold because they're so different. But Neptune's subtle but powerful nature universally immerses us into the change at hand, like a global tidal wave. Neptune in Aries becomes active, personal, embodied, and fiery. We are already seeing Neptune in Aries come to life when Neptune took its first dip into Aries this summer, as we saw the Department of Defense become the Department of War, and the fall of DEI, as well as the removal of other soft services within the US government as soon as that ingress took place and as it was anticipating taking place. We saw an outcry from many men in the US declaring that their voices need to be heard. And this is in the midst of a growing push towards female equality, which was largely happening in concordance with Neptune in Pisces. When nature is working well, it is balanced and the needs of all the pieces are addressed by the whole. While the more compassionate and soft approach inspired by Neptune in Pisces was needed, it is likely that important voices were missed and that there is an imbalance that needs to be worked through, which Neptune in Aries will certainly work on, and we're already seeing this happen. Neptune in Aries will likely be a more embodied version of Neptune, focusing on spiritual independence, action-based mysticism, and a shift from compassion to courage, as well as a new era of pioneers in all areas of our modern world. We will also see the dissolving of old leadership models. We need to be careful of the spiritualized ego and fanaticism with Neptune and Aries. We also need to be careful of impulsivity, martyr warrior dynamics, and a lack of patience. With Neptune and Aries, we will shift from we are all one to I must become myself. Pulling us back into the present moment, as I stated before, Neptune will station direct on December 10th, 2025, and this takes place at the anaretic degree of Pisces, 29 degrees Pisces, and 22 minutes. Neptune will essentially be at the same degree for the entirety of December as it prepares to stop and then station direct. On January 26, 2026, Neptune will make its decisive ingress into Aries and will be there for the next 13 years. The month of December and into January could be illuminating the dark side of compassion, which is martyrdom. Where are you giving more than is necessary and creating toxicity instead of healing? While compassion is overall a positive act, remember that it can also be used as a means to control others and to manipulate the narrative. Everything, even compassion, has a dark side. At the end of 2025, take some time to reflect on the past 14 years and how much your life has changed, how much the world has changed. What are you proud of? What would you have done differently? In what ways have you grown spiritually? And during this time, the boundaries of humanity have been blurred by technology. We can connect immediately with anyone around the world. It's huge. How has this changed your social experiences? How has it improved them? And how has it been damaging? So I know we're focusing on Neptune a lot, but it's an important focus because there's so much interaction with Neptune as well as Saturn this month. So we're going to move into Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. And I know that I've mentioned this dynamic in previous newsletters, and I'm going to continue to really bring it up quite strongly into the new year because it's something that's so central to the really fast, disruptive, dissolving changes that we've encountered all year, specifically into the summer, and that we will continue experiencing throughout the year, but especially earlier in 2026. So, Saturn has been in Pisces since March of 2023 and will decisively enter Aries in February of 2026. For much of 2025 and into 2026, Saturn and Neptune have been traveling together quite closely in the late degrees of Pisces and the early degrees of Aries. So, check your charts for what you have in those positions and also anything in the late degrees of mutable signs, which is Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, and the early degrees of cardinal signs, which is Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Although Saturn and Neptune do not perfect their conjunction until February 20th, 2026, we are still in the vortex of profound spiritual change and the crumbling of structures and loss as a whole. So, briefly, Saturn represents the solid, known, the measurable, the tangible, and Neptune represents the mysterious, the boundless, the invisible, the collective unconscious, and the intangible. They're each working in this opposite way, but have a very powerful orientation to them once they get together. So the Saturn Neptune archetype has defined 2025 and will continue to make its mark through 2026. Together, they create a field where spirit meets matter, dream meets discipline, compassion meets responsibility, and illusion meets truth. Optimally, great spiritual maturity is possible under this combination, an archetype where suffering can be turned into wisdom. In addition, structures are bound to be dissolved. Outdated political, religious, familial, or psychological forms can be collapsed for the purpose of reconstruction. This combination also brings warnings of guilt and inherited shame. Remember that we are not responsible for most people's pain. If you are on an active spiritual path, you could experience notable shifts in your practice. This could be something that's been happening for the past year or so, and you might continue to have these impacts. But as 2026 wanes and 2027 begins, you could likely find that your spiritual world is just so different. These shifts could initially be perceived as blocks or weak connections. If this occurs, restabilize your boundaries and be patient. It's really important for your own energetic boundaries to stay protected. Always, big spiritual shifts are occurring in the collective, so expect an upgrade on the other side of the momentary blip that we're in. So Saturn and Neptune join together every 35 to 36 years. And when they conjoin, the world enters a period of melting, restructuring, spiritualization, and disillusionment. It is arguably one of the most collective cycles in astrology. So, on the world stage, we can expect the continuation of the breakdown of political structures, new forms replacing old hierarchies, exposure of corruption, fracturing of longstanding institutions, and the collapse of rigid frameworks. This collapse can stimulate uncertainty and even panic because humans need a firm foundation to stand upon. And in these times, stability is less promised than usual. That said, times of Saturn Neptune conjunctions have led to some of the most impactful science and technological breakthroughs, such as the birth of the World Wide Web, the identification of the DNA structure, and the development of the hydrogen bomb. History will place the wide distribution of AI into the current Saturn Neptune conjunction timeframe. And because we're right in the midst of it, we have no idea what that actually means. So, in addition, at this time, Russia is in a tumultuous place with its war with Ukraine. Russia is strongly impacted by Saturn Neptune conjunctions. And when you go back in history with each of these Saturn-Neptune conjunctions, you find that Russia responds very strongly to these conjunctions happening. So it's expected in the next year that Russia will likely encounter a significant leadership change. These large-scale governmental changes could also be seen throughout the world, not just Russia, because that is also one of the larger themes of the conjunction as well. So throughout December, Saturn and Neptune and Pisces are being interacted with by every faster moving planet, which includes, of course, the moon, but also the sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And Mars specifically is happening in the beginning of the month, the first couple weeks. So bubbles could pop with that interaction occurring. So look out for reality behind some of the corruption being exposed, or just overall greater disruption to what's already crumbling, maybe even a quickening. As I said, this could quicken the governmental and social corrosion that is already occurring and illuminate the cracks in the system. We are being forced to deal with the change at hand. It could make potentially difficult decisions. And this is both personally and universally. So, whatever is arising in December could set the stage for what really unfolds the first couple of months of 2026. And our final stop for this month is the Sagittarius new moon, which takes place on December 19th, 2025 at 8:43 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and is situated at 28 degrees Sagittarius, 24 minutes. The sign of Sagittarius is a cry for independence. However, the new moon is nearly exact in an exact quincunx to Uranus and could be thwarting any efforts towards actual liberation or feelings of freedom. We could also find that our vision to integrate something new in our lives feels obstructed. Again, Venus is very close to the new moon, which could bring peace and harmony to our holiday week. However, the new moon and Venus are all in a very close square with Saturn and Neptune and Pisces. And since we've already spoken so much about Saturn and Neptune, specifically in Pisces, I'm sure that you can get an idea of what this could mean. We could really see these Saturn Neptune topics being highlighted. We could be feeling more sentimental during this holiday season, thoughts of loved ones who have passed, as well as traditions and other parts of our lives that are no longer with us anymore. And this could become heavy on our hearts. There's a real heavy feeling around the holidays this year. So allow for this holiday week to unfold slowly and create room for moments of heaviness and remembrance. Change is not something that humans are good at. However, there is immense wisdom and growth in change. If you find that you are mourning a part of yourself or your life in general, be kind and patient. Loss and letting go is largely what the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is made of. And the Sagittarius new moon is highlighting this process. So in closing, December largely acts as the grand finale of 2025. However, we ironically find ourselves right back where we started. Most of the outer planets have returned to where they were at the beginning of the year. We have Saturn back in Pisces, Uranus back in Taurus, and Neptune back in Pisces as well. So the middle of 2025 briefly dunked us into the tidal wave of change that we stand amidst. And now we contemplate how to proceed forward once we are decisively thrust into the same waters in 2026 and beyond. Take advantage of the reflection and the relative downtime that is provided in December. Enjoy your loved ones and any vacation time that you may have. Choose laughter and hope whenever you can. One of the many gifts of Saturn and Neptune is the insight that is gained regarding life's fragility. Yes, we could get lulled into the fear of this insight that every moment is laden in threats of endings. However, there's also an invitation to fully embrace the value that is gifted upon each moment. We only have the moment that we are currently in. That is all we are guaranteed, this very moment. So embrace it, value it, fill it with love, fill it with laughter, fill it with loved ones, and have a really great holiday season. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast and for supporting my work. I have many more projects planned for 2026, which I will soon share. But until next time, I will see you in 2026. I can't believe that. Have a wonderful everything, all of the holidays. Take care, everyone. Bye.